Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So, how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back to another episode of Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and today we are on episode 237, which is all about finding peace during unsettling times. And these are indeed unsettling times. And so I see so many people who are afraid. Rightfully so. I see so many people who feel hopeless. I would like to think not rightfully so. And I also just see people who are struggling, even just with the day-to-day and going through the motions because, the world is really wild out there. And that is a really nice way of putting it. So I thought today would be a great day to cover some tried and true methods that work during any kind of unsettling time. So for me, when I think of what is an unsettling time, generally there is either some kind of grief because of a loss or some kind of fear because of uncertainty. And so loss can come in, I think when we think of grief, we generally think of death, but any kind of loss can actually cause us to feel grief. And that loss can be children in the sense of you become an empty nester. Maybe it's just grief around your relationship with your child. Maybe as they are growing a little bit older, whether they are in their teenage years or their adult years, maybe you're not as close. Maybe they're more distant, and maybe there's some grief around that. Maybe there is grief related to a health condition or simply aging, getting older, the loss of youthful skin, the loss of energy, the loss of your body feeling, amazing when you roll over in bed and wake up. Used to we would we would feel achy and have a headache when we would go out all night. And now I don't know about you, but I can feel that way if I just go to bed at 11 p.m. So there can be a lot of reasons why we can grieve a loss. There are so many people losing their jobs right now. The economy is not what it was. And so you might have a loss of income. And there might be fear around that, but there's also grief around that. It is a loss of love, loss of marriage or partnership, any kind of loss related to a relationship. It could be the loss of your innocence, the loss of your belief in the rule of law, the loss of rights, the loss of respect. There's a lot of loss that is happening right now, individually and collectively. And so there is a lot of grief that we are holding. And that is going to make us feel as though things are very unsettled, unsettling. The same is true for fear. So when it comes to unsettling times, generally, I think it's a fear of uncertainty. It's a fear of what is to come. So often I think grief is related to something that has already happened, whereas fear, it could be what's happening, but generally it's related to what might happen. It's a little bit of future tripping, but I think sometimes when we say future tripping, it sounds like, well, we're making everything up. Well, it could also be realistic. It could be founded on facts. So it does not mean that you are future tripping in a way that is right, like you're just completely making up a wild story. So you might be experiencing some uncertainty, some fear around your health, around your job, around your business. It's about anything that you feel you might lose, right? So grief is what you have lost or you're losing, and fear is what you might lose. And so, again, that also can relate to everything that's in that grief category. So, everything related to your rights, things going backwards, losing your job, just the state of the world, our earth, our nature, longevity. There's just so much wrapped up in all of this fear, all of this grief. And how do we move through it? Obviously, therapy and a lot of tools can be super, super helpful. And there is absolutely no shame in therapy. There is no shame in getting a life coach, whatever it is maybe that you're needing. So, and we actually had an episode. I highly encourage you to go back and listen to Corey Lynn, where we talked about what is the difference between life coaching and therapy and when would you want one over the other. And so I think if you are feeling as though you can't even focus and you're struggling to function, that definitely could be signs of depression, and you would want a therapist for that. I will tell you, after my adrenal tumor, I was definitely depressed, but could not see that. I could not see that. I thought it was still related to where I had the adrenal tumor, it was having very serious neurological impacts. I thought it was still related to that. And I was very angry and frustrated at the doctor who told me this is no longer related to the tumor and your illness. You are just depressed. And he was right. It is true. But him telling me that made me go get help. And I went on medication. I could not, and I didn't want to. I've been on medication a long, long time ago, and I did not want to do that again because I felt like in some ways that it was just numbing out, and I didn't want to numb out, but I could not turn that corner. And I needed the medication to turn the corner. So if you are anxious and depressed, please know that there is no shame. There is zero shame in getting help and going to a therapist, in getting medication, whatever it is for you, to get you back to some kind of baseline where you can even then do other tools such as life coaching or meditation or mindfulness. I'm going to go through a few different examples, but I do just want to say that you may need help, professional help. And I know we all think we can do everything on our own. Like, right? Like, I mean, I will raise my hand. I think I can do anything and everything on my own, which is a great trait to have, but it can also really keep us stuck and keep us from asking for help. So let me say that first and foremost. If, though, you are already seeing a therapist, or maybe you are on medication, or you have a decent baseline, but you're simply experiencing grief, you're experiencing loss, you're experiencing fear, you're experiencing uncertainty, and you're struggling to find the same peace and joy that you used to, then I have some tips and tools for you. Now, you can also use these tips and tools if you're going to therapy and whatever else. I just wanted to make that distinction because I do think a lot of times, just in the online space, in the podcast world and self-help in general, sometimes we fail to address that you may have actual neurological issues or psychological issues where you need to go get professional health help. Okay. No shame in it. So, for me, what is helping me maintain my peace right now, I think partly is because like you, I'm not the only one. I have just gone through so many difficult times that I had to find ways to experience peace during those difficult times. And they are the tools that I always come back to. And so hopefully, the world will all be beautiful and amazing. And this podcast will still be helpful for you if you find it 5 or 10 years from now. Because if you are ever experiencing any kind of grief, or if you are ever experiencing any kind of fear as it relates to loss and uncertainty, these things will help. So, the first one is mindfulness, truly mindfulness. And I have an entire episode on mindfulness. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I will actually set at the very end where it recommends a new video, I will set the mindfulness one. Now, that one is back when we were doing audio only. So you can't see me. It will just be, I think, a picture of the cover, the podcast cover, but you'll get the audio on it. So you can listen to it that way. And if you were listening to audio only, you'll just have to do a Google search. But I did an episode on mindfulness many years ago. So this isn't going to dig all the way in. But from a high level perspective, mindfulness is about paying attention on purpose. Paying attention on purpose. I believe John Kabat-Zinn said that, but that's really at its core what it is. It's paying attention on purpose. And so one way to practice that is to meditate, but you don't have to meditate, okay? So you can simply pay attention to what's around you. It is spring in Nashville where I'm living. I know everybody has different weather right now, but we have flowers that are starting to bloom. Our trees are blooming. We have beautiful white flowering trees. We have purple flowering trees. The yellow forsythia is blooming. Our azaleas are starting to bloom. There's some beautiful pink azaleas I've seen out. And I noticed, was it yesterday? That I looked up and our big oak tree that is probably 100 years old, it has, its leaves are all coming out. And then I started looking and there's a lot of buds on all of our trees. There's green coming out. And nature is such an easy, accessible way to pay attention on purpose, especially in the spring. The fall too, but we've got a while. So we're going to focus on the spring. And you may realize that you already do this, right? Because you're driving down the road one day or you look out the window one day and you're like, "Oh, look, it's the flowers are here. Or this tree is when did that happen?" And so this is a great test every single day to say, what's new? What is happening new in the world? And I don't mean on news, right? Like it's not what's new in the news. That is not going to help you find your peace. It's not, what's new with your family or your friends, although that could bring some joy. It's what's new around me. You don't have to call anyone. You don't have to go anywhere. You can look out a window. Once a day, just look out a window and say, what's new? And during the springtime, it's really amazing how many new things you will see and how many things change overnight. It's wild. So I have been in the practice lately of spending time in the morning, really just kind of taking in everything that is happening around me. And what's funny is I've been sitting on the couch looking out the window. And so I've been seeing my tree line. But when I was mentioning the big oak tree, that's kind of like up above my sight line. So it was when I went outside and I was just standing and I was looking. It was when I looked up and I was like, oh, I've been looking out, but I've not been looking up. So again, it's like the world, there are things happening above me and I'm just not noticing them because I'm not paying attention. I'm so focused on my work. I'm so focused on I've got to get to the gym or the routine or what are we making for tonight, having a conversation with my husband, or even if I'm out for a walk or I'm running an errand, I've got thoughts in my head. I'm not really paying attention on purpose. And so this is a beautiful, beautiful way to do that. When we are at Miraval for my Joy in the Journey retreat, people always talk about how peaceful it is. They're like, oh my gosh, this place is so beautiful. It is so peaceful. And they start talking about the birds. They start talking about the butterflies. They start talking about nature. They start talking about the stars. Now, Miraval is a beautiful place. They have it landscaped really well. And the sky is beautiful because I actually just learned this from the driver on my last trip when I was there at the beginning of March. He was telling me that that particular part of Tucson is designated, I don't remember the term he used, but it's designated for stars. So even he was pointing out to me that even in the neighborhoods, there were no street lamps. So, of course, you can see the stars better in that area because not just Miraval, but all of the neighborhoods and the area around, it's a designated area. So there's not as much light as night. So this is, of course, why you can see the stars better. But that is not the only reason that people think it's peaceful. And that is not the only reason that they're noticing the birds and the butterflies and the stars. So Miraval is a digital free property, which means you cannot be out walking around being on your phone. And it's one thing when you are choosing to unplug, it is another when everyone around you is unplugged as well, because it impacts the energy. If you are walking around in a place and everybody's on their phones, right? Like text messaging, you can just, they're looking down, they're not looking up, or, I'm holding my phone up as if like that's how people talk. They've got their earbuds in and they're just talking to themselves. Anything like that, you still are in the energy of busy. You're in the energy of being distracted. And when everyone is unplugged, and there's literally little signs all around that says unplug and be present, it's so much easier to do that. So in that space, when you are unplugged and you are present, you focus on other things. You are paying attention to your surroundings. Otherwise, you would just be bored. So, because you're not on your phone, because you're not having a million thoughts about what you're doing next, you have the opportunity to look around and say, oh, look at this bird, or I think I'm going to sit on this bench. As I'm walking in the night sky, I'm going to stop and pay attention to the stars. That is only possible when you are in an environment that facilitates that. Now, here's the really cool thing. You can facilitate that environment anytime, but you've got to facilitate it. So if you're in your office building, you can still have moments of paying attention on purpose, but you have to facilitate it. It's not going to happen naturally. So you might have to find a place or close a door. You might have to leave your phone behind, turn off your notifications, walk away, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes where you are not accessible. And you choose to pay attention. You choose to unplug and be present. unplug and be present. This is also why you don't want to fully rely on things like the Calm app or music, things where it's in your ear. It's still got that digital interface, and you're probably still going to get your notices on your watch or your phone or whatever else, but truly just being in nature. And the other part of paying attention on purpose to nature is it reminds you that there's still something bigger out there, and that this earth has regenerated itself for millions of years. And even though you might be experiencing a personal crisis, personal loss, personal fear and uncertainty, or that the world, that the government, that our countries, that global stability, there's a collective crisis. When you look out the window or walk outside and you purposefully look at the things that are changing, you are reminded that the earth regenerates. You are reminded that you are connected to something larger. You see that the grass is still growing. You see that the birds are still chirping. You see that they are building their nests. And you see that we're coming out of winter. That in one day where you saw nothing before, overnight you wake up and you're like, wait, that has color now. It's interesting. The honeysuckle, I know it's technically like an invasive species and it's not real. Well, it's real, but you know what I mean? Like it's not the fancy landscaping. We have some woods behind our house, and so there's a lot of honeysuckle, again, invasive, but it's one of the first things to that will actually become green. And I remember when I saw little specks of green to it was like fully green. It was a matter of days. It happens so fast. And so when you're paying attention to that and you see how fast things can change, it is a reminder that we do go in cycles and things are possible. It's really about establishing hope. It's about establishing hope. If the earth around us can regenerate, if spring can cause things to change overnight, it is a reminder that time does still march on, life still goes on, this too shall pass, and there is hope that, like spring, we can have new beginnings and we can get back to um, our roots. It's also a reminder that there will always be pain and that humans will be humaning, right? Like there's always going to be war. And just the reminder that it is this cycle, I think can bring some peace. It's also great for calming your nervous system and just bringing you back to what is and being in the moment. And we know, I think I probably did cover this in the mindfulness episode. There is so much research that shows mindfulness can literally rewire your brain and the gray matter in your brain. And so, again, you don't have to know anything about mindfulness. You don't have to enjoy meditation. You can 100% carve out 5-10 minutes to simply pay attention on purpose to nature and what is happening each and every day. And if you need to take a photo to remind you, that you can even look at the comparisons. So, the other thing that you can do that will make a really big difference is look for what's going right. Look for what's going right. And was it Mr. Rogers? I don't remember that said like when things are going wrong to look for the helpers. And I think it's a similar concept. When things are going wrong, look for the helpers. And when things are going wrong, look for what's going right. Where can you feel gratitude? And let me be clear, this is not about toxic positivity. This is not about, I should be grateful. This is not about, I am going to find ways to feel grateful so that I don't feel bad. This is actually going back to the concept of hope. Gratitude became an important part of my life it is a tool in 12-step recovery groups. So I've shared on the podcast before, I I'm not an addict, so I have not gone to 12-step recovery groups in that sense, but I have experienced being in relationship with and loving someone who is an addict, and the anon groups are for those people, and those people are me. I am those people. So I have been to those type of 12-step groups. And they have so many tools, but one of the tools that they offer is, and they especially do this in the beginning, when you feel so low, or if you ever get to a place where you're feeling so much despair and you feel there is no hope, you can always look for what is going right. And even if you can identify like one thing or three things, there is always something that is going right. But we do have a propensity, our brain is wired to look for the negative. So we got to put in the work. It's paying attention on purpose to what is going right. We have to seek it out. We have to find it. What is going right? Maybe it's my hair looks good today. Maybe it's I was able to take a shower because I have running water. It can really be that simple. It is I have electricity. I have water. I have food. I have a bed. And gratitude is never about comparing what you have to what someone else has. Because, and this, this is again a 12-step principle. If you go to a place of comparison, it is false. It is not real hope. It is not real gratitude. It is false hope. It is false gratitude. And that is not lasting. And it does not help. So it's not, I am grateful that I have a bed to sleep on because others do not. It is not, I am grateful that I have food because others don't have that. It's truly what is nourishing you, what is sustaining you, what is providing for you. It could be your lungs, it could be your heart. And again, the last time I was at Miraval in March, I lead and facilitate a retreat, but I also try to take time to do some things for myself there, especially the day before, because I really want to get in the right energy and the morning of. And so I have a routine. Generally we start on Sundays and it kicks off at 3:30. So I get to the room around 2 to start preparing everything. But that morning I do the same thing. It's very much a routine and a ritual. I wake up, I go get some breakfast. And then at 8 a.m., they always have it at 8 a.m., they have morning meditation. And so I go to morning meditation at 8 a.m. And then afterwards, I go to the spa. I get some kind of massage. It's generally the Shamana Karma, which is my favorite. But in that meditation, it's always a different leader. It's always a different meditation. And this was the first time I had actually meditated with this particular facilitator. And he said something that was so simple, yet so profound for me. And it was starting to pay attention to the mundane, starting to pay attention to what is boring. So many times, peace is in the boring. And we will complain. His example was we will complain when we have a toothache, but we don't seem to notice or pay attention or have gratitude for when we don't have a toothache. So each and every day that we don't have a toothache, each and every day that we don't have a health problem, each and every day that our heart is pumping and keeping us alive, each and every day that our lungs give us breath, each and every day that we don't actually have to think about how am I going to pick this up, there can be such peace in that. There can be so much gratitude in that, but we are not paying attention to it. We tend to only pay attention to what is going wrong. So, for example, when I had my adrenal tumor, I had so many problems, but one was I had chronic pain, chronic joint pain. And I had never experienced joint pain. So when I had it, I was like, oh my God, this is so painful. And now that it's gone and I don't have it anymore, I have so much gratitude for no joint pain. And sometimes it's hard to have gratitude for something when you don't know what it's like to not have it, when it's just always there and you just take it for granted. And so when you then experience the other and you come back, you're like, oh my God, I'm so grateful for this. But I suspect that over time, it's easy to forget again, but I don't want to forget. So it's part of the ways in which I practice gratitude. Another was, I couldn't use my brain. And like I had a lot of fog. I couldn't find words. And I never appreciated how able my brain was until it wasn't. And so I now, each and every day that I wake up and I can use my brain, I have so much gratitude. So much gratitude. You may struggle if you've never had something where it was taken away and then you got it back. But I do think that you can at least understand the concept of that. And so it can be that basic, but it can be other things. It can be like, I'm so grateful to have my children or my animals or my spouse. I am so grateful for maybe a particular piece of like clothing that I have. It's like, I love this shirt. It brings a smile to my face. And I can feel grateful for that. It is an absolute shit show out there. And there are so many things still going right in your life. And there is so much peace in what's going right. There is so much peace in the boring. There is so much peace in the mundane, and learning to pay attention on purpose, to notice it and to say, well, this is going right. Thank God this is going right. And again, it's simply a way to seek out and to reach for hope. Because when we lose hope and we are only in despair, we will get depressed. We will struggle to naturally see what is good and hopeful and peaceful and joyful in our lives. And so I think we all could experience more peace right now. And so it is a practice, it is work, but it is good practice and it is good work. And it can also provide perspective and help you create some of that distance and that pause in what you are consuming, who you are connecting with, and how you're letting your phone and the news impact your life. So I hope that you have found that helpful. I hope that you can find more hope. I hope that you can see more good. I hope that you can surround yourself with the helpers. I hope you can see how you are helping. And if you are not helping, definitely go back and listen to the episode, watch the episode about over functioning during difficult times, because for many of us who are fixers, we can tend to overfunction, but there's also a flight and freeze that I'm seeing a lot of right now where we're not showing up at all. And even showing up to help other people can be a huge benefit. So it's not just look for the helpers, but join the helpers, become a helper. But don't forget to find your peace, get recentered, get grounded, unplug, be present, and pay attention to the world around you. Okay, that is it for today. I will mention, since I actually referenced a few things with Miraval, if you could really use some relaxation and restoration, but more importantly, really get grounded and recentered in who you are, what you want, being able to hear that voice within, being able to reconnect with your spirituality, whatever that means for you. Joy in the Journey is a wonderful way to do that. And we had only planned on doing one of those in March, which we just did, because we were doing an alumni retreat in September 28th to October 1st. But we just found out that we're actually going to be able to host a joy in the journey retreat as well during that time. So we've already filled a couple of the spots. We went back to people who've really been wanting to come, but who have had scheduling conflicts. But if you're interested in that, we do have a few spots available. And that technically kicks off the first week of August. That's when you get your welcome box, because there is an 8-week self-paced workbook that you do. And then we meet in person September 28th to October 1. So if you are interested in that at all, then just reach out. If you are on my email, you can respond to an email. You can get us that way, support@heatherjoyhubbard.com. You can also DM me anytime on Instagram, and I would be happy to share more of the details with you, including what that looks like. And then if you're interested, we can just schedule a time to have a call to make sure you are a good fit. But we do have a few spots available, so I'm super, super excited to be having another group out there. All right. Take care of yourself. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I'll see you back here next Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.